Good evening, everyone. Welcome to SocialFlight Live. I'm Jeff Simon. I'm here with Jake Simon, who has joined me tonight for a very cool and fun edition of SocialFlight Live. You know, we do a lot of work both on our T-51 Mustang from Titan, building this project, as well as working on our Bonanza. Jake here is working on his A&P, which is a lot of fun to get your FAA A&P mechanics license at some point here. Obviously, I'm already an A&P and also an IA, and so, you know, we spend a lot of time around tools for both certified aircraft and also, of course, for our experimental. And we thought it would be really fun to be able to take some time and show you some of the cool tools that are a little out of the norm. I mean, we'll show some normal things that we do and what we find to be handy, but a couple things that are, or at least maybe a whole bunch of things that are very customized. Now, before we get started, a couple things. First of all, you can ask questions by using the Q&A feature that's built here into the platform. So post your question here. We've got Ben behind the camera, and he is going to relay your questions up, and I'll do my best to try to get some of those answered. Probably toss a bunch of them over to this guy and let him take care of them as well. The other thing, of course, is be sure to stay on everything that's going on here with SocialFlight. With so many things happening, of course, we've got a lot of challenges in the world. COVID is increasing, and we're seeing a lot more shutdowns and restrictions. It's more important than ever, I think, for pilots to stay proficient, keep using flying as your means of centering yourself, finding some happiness in your world, being able to fly within your safe social circle. You know, I have said from the very beginning when we created this show for this purpose that General Aviation, we're built for this. Most of the people who fly either alone or with a very tight circle of people that they live with anyway, and yet our entire community is very vulnerable. From the companies that we have seen here in the industry that many of them are struggling, FBOs, local restaurants at airports, etc. And I say this in the most heartfelt way. It's important for you to stay proficient. It's important for you to have the joy in your life of flying and be able to keep that going and to keep our industry going. And that's why we're here and why we do this. And I ask that of you as well. You can find all that information of what's happening on SocialFlight.com and the free SocialFlight mobile app. And our last thing about that is as we approach the end of this month, the end of our Thanksgiving month, one of the things we have is a great giveaway. We've got a Zulu 3 headset that we are giving away December 1st. And all you need to do to be entered to win is go flying using SocialFlight. There's a little button called Fly to Win for the Fly to Win Challenge. Just grab it, push that button, make sure that you're set up, go, and it automatically checks you in at airports when you fly and gives you points. And it's not a winner take all. You fly, you just get points once, and you're entered into a drawing. And our top 30 people get the most points. They're in the top. They get 2 entries, and we'll have at it. We'll report back with our winner of that Lightspeed Zulu 3 headset. So cool. All right, so you ready to get started?
Yep, let's go.
Okay, so want to kick things off. You know, in addition to what I do here with SocialFlight, I also have a company called Approach Aviation and write for AOPA. And I do the maintenance column. You can check online for aopa.org. And one of the things that my most recent column is about is working on alternators for certified aircraft. And there are some cases where if you happen to have a gear-driven alternator, generally on Continental Motors engines, such as the one that we have in our Bonanza, you think about it this way. You've got this alternator that's attached directly to the engine. Anything that happens to that alternator could actually damage the engine. If something were to seize, if something were to start really wobbling crazy, it's going straight into a ring gear inside the engine. And there's a challenge because there has been, there's this product that is a component of that system called an alternator drive coupling. This is what I'm holding in my hand here. So I'm going to show this to you. So you can see that it's a gear that is mounted in this kind of silicone bed and then has this shell, which is what you're seeing on the outside of this. Now, what's important about this is this acts as kind of a shear system, essentially like a clutch. So if anything happens to this alternator, This will spin when it reaches a certain torque, will not damage and destroy your engine. Pretty important stuff. Unfortunately, as we went through this whole process, learning this and doing all these things, the inspections that are required in order to maintain these require you to make your own tools. There's no actual tool available that you can go and check these. And so we took it upon ourselves to actually make a tool, and we are going to actually start selling that through approachaviation.com and make that available just so that people can do this inspection. All it does is measure the point at which this is slipping, and it makes sure it's slipping at the proper interval. And Continental and all the other companies that produce the alternators themselves have a required inspection every 500 hours to make sure that this is inspected and that this alternator drive coupling is slipping at the proper torque. Very important. If you're having trouble getting enough power, it may not be that you need a new alternator. It may be that this is actually slipping. And so what we've done is we have created this tool, our first of our cool tools tonight, and that is this large socket that has, it's made of aluminum in here, so it doesn't damage in any way these gear teeth. You put this into it, and you can do this while it's mounted directly on the alternator. And it has a 3/8 adapter right here where you put in a torque wrench, click it in there, set it, and then the way that you hold the base is also a challenge. And they have two little notches in here, and we have a custom spanner that we've made, and that clicks in right along the base. If I can actually make that happen, you put this in here. And again, this is going to be a lot easier on a bench. And then you hold one, you click this, you get it to the right torque, and you know you're good for another 500 hours. So thanks, Jake, for that. And put that baby back. That's brand new. If you have any questions about it, just send me an email at jeff@approachaviation.com, or just send a note anywhere having to do with this. So let's talk about measuring. Now, Jake we do a lot of measuring, right? Okay. Show me your favorite measuring tools.
Okay, so the first one that we use a lot, and of course we somehow always lose them. There must be like a caliper gnome or something that's taken them from our workshop, but that has to do with digital calipers, and measuring at small intervals is really what we're looking for. Yep. So we found one actually from Home Depot by Husky, which is their brand, and it does something that a lot of our digital calipers don't, which is reading them in fraction form for inches. I believe it does it in 64ths. And so that does a really, really good job for when you're trying to measure something and know what drill bit to go to, what nut that you're using. So really anything like that.
I will say that is, and first of all, you're right about having the caliper gnomes, because we have more measuring tools, whether they be small rulers or calipers or things like that, and they go vanished everywhere. But it wasn't until we actually found that specific Husky one that has it in fractions. Mm-hmm. That saved a lot, because I got to tell you, when you're working on stuff, especially building something like this Mustang, like you always wind up with a drill that you don't remember the size of. And some of them are going to be in numbered sizes, but others, it's actually great to just grab the hole or grab whatever you're doing, or grab a bolt head and see it in the fraction that you know you need to reach a wrench for, or a socket for, or something like that.
Yep.
So that's definitely cool. They have some other calipers here as well, and now we're starting to get into things a little more eccentric. Okay, this is another type of caliper. Why don't you talk about what this one's for?
Yeah, so this is how you basically measure the outer diameter of something.
Right, so if you get something that's like really large, then you have to actually figure out what the outside is, and you can't always get into it. We could take something here like this big punch that we're going to talk about later, and we can actually measure the outside of this, which is really big, by using this. And a tool like this, and then you've got another one there.
Yep, which is basically the opposite of that.
Yeah, so let's show that one. And these are digital, and they can do the same thing, millimeters, or millimeters or inches, etc. And this one automatically is spring-loaded and will help you measure the inside of something, which is also great for a whole bunch of different things. Yep. Like sometimes you're going in and it's really hard to get a ruler in, because a ruler will extend longer than the space. And if you're literally trying to say, how do I figure out how much space I have between these two things that are like, we did this for our center pedestal recently in the Mustang. You slide that in, you let it go, you read it. These are just available on Amazon because they're not really specific, and I won't say like super high quality tools. They're pretty cheap, right? Now let's start talking about some other stuff here. Now most of our real quality aircraft tools are all here from Aircraft Tool Supply. We use them for just about everything because they have very high quality tools that are specifically made for aircraft, and they stand behind them. They've always done that for us. And so the next kind of things that I'm going to show you here, let's start with the Time Right, is something that's that you can get directly from Aircraft Tool Supply. So we recently went through and did the annual inspection on the Bonanza, and you want to talk a little bit about what this is?
So yeah, when we now that I'm learning to go get an ANP license, it was a perfect time to use this tool. And we used it a couple times in order to level the frame of the Mustang and stuff like that. But this case, we were actually able to measure where top dead center was in order to do a mag timing, stuff like that.
So if you ever do timing on your engine, obviously your engine's going to have a setting on the data plate for a certain number of degrees before top dead center. And Time Right is a really, really cool instrument. It starts with this little thing that goes as a nose cone on your spinner or up front, and it has rubber bands that attach it so it's nice and secure. And then, if you want to talk through it, we've got this guy.
Yeah, so that basically will sit inside of the nose cone after you attach this. And do you want to go start explaining the process?
Yeah, so this is the digital protractor for what angle your propeller is actually at. And so what you do is you take, you can either do that first, or you can do this part first. You put a pin in your #1 cylinder. First you wait until it's coming up on its compression stroke. And then you put it in there and you secure it, and it tells you when it hits the pin before the top dead center point. And then you remove the pin, you go past the stroke when it starts to come down, you put the pin back in, you measure it when it comes up and hits it that way. And by looking at the different marks on what angles you're at by using this digital protractor, you basically now have 2 marks. And if you go halfway in between those 2, that's the top dead center. That's the point where you stopped it at an exact point as it was coming up. You stopped it at an exact point from the other side of that, and you split the difference, boom, you've got top dead center, and it's extraordinarily accurate. Great tool, use it all the time, and again, Aircraft Tool Supply is a great source for that. Now, we use digital protractors for a bunch of things, and one of the things that we do had to do with leveling on our T-51. And sometimes you're measuring something that is far or is hard to reach, hard to get at. You really don't want to get your head up underneath to see it, and so you kind of need a way to remotely display what you're measuring. Now we're getting kind of eccentric on this. This is something everybody needs all the time, but it is really cool. And that is this. It looks identical to what the other one was on that we just had before. That was on the Time Right, and you have this readout which looks identical, but they have separated it so that the sender is this remote unit, and just use this little Ethernet cable. Any Ethernet cable that you have for internet can work. That just goes between both of these, and it's kind of cool because you can put this wherever you need to and see what's happening. There's some interesting uses for this. Think about it in terms of like operations for rigging an aircraft, where you're in there and you're holding the yoke centered, and you want to know what the ailerons are doing. You can actually put the sensor on an aileron. You can bring the display up to you in the cockpit, and you can say, that's exactly, this is the level point, or this is the low point. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You get, honestly, the reality is that once you come up with an excuse to buy this stuff,
yeah,
you come up with reasons to use them. You come up with those. What do you want to talk about next, Jake?
Let's talk about drilling, which is something that we have to do a lot in the T-51 builds, of course, doing all the skins and everything like that. But a big problem that we always have is trying to actually get the angle to get into some of these hard corners in order to drill those holes. And we've come across some pretty cool tools that allow us to get straight holes in those tight corners.
Right. So let's start. This is this is our go-to drill from Aircraft Tool Supply. You get to pick your color, and it's a I think 4,000 RPM drill. And you can buy this with this speed chuck, which I really like, not having to have a key. You can just do it. And so this is just an option when you order it from ATS. And so pretty cool. You like using that?
Yeah, I think the variable speed that you're allowed to do with this is incredibly precise, and it's really, really good. It makes all your holes more controlled is really what it does.
And the faster the drill, in some cases, the better. So now let's look at some of these others.
But then we came across some other drills, which when you can't get that big red drill into some of these places, you need a way to make them straight. And what we used to do is just get a longer drill bit. But of course, the longer the drill bit, the more wobble you have.
Yeah, and even then, if you have a really long drill bit, if you're really up against the side, all you're doing is reducing the angle that you're wrong.
Yeah.
Like, basically that's it, right? Like if you're trying to get into a tight corner and you take a basic, like the red drill, well then you're putting it in there and you know you're at like 30-degree angle when you're not supposed to be at any degrees, and the chuck is kind of grinding a little bit sometimes into the metal. You know you're doing it wrong in your heart and you're trying to justify it somehow. And so you get a longer drill bit, which lets you make it less wrong, but
that's not the right way to do it. So the next thing that we did was this right angle drill. We talked about this little in the last webinar that we did.
Yep, so there's a close shot of that one. Really narrow head, and all of this. These are all air powered, and great control over that.
But again, a big problem that you have with this is sometimes in the corners, you're trying to go up against the skin, and your hand is right in the spot that you want to drill. You can't really always get to these points, which is when we found this next drill.
That's right. So that got us a whole bunch of stuff. So when we started using that was awesome.
Yeah.
And then it got awesomer.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk about this guy?
So this is
show that one.
So right here, this is a 45-degree drill. Very, very similar to what the other one does, variable speed, everything like that, except now it brings your hand out of the way and allows you to get really, really close to whatever surface it is without grinding it again on the chuck or different things like that. So, I mean, this has helped us with all of the skins, especially on the rear of the aircraft, where the space between the left and the right skins are very narrow, and you need to be able to get to it.
Yeah, the complaining level when drilling has gone so far down. Okay, all right, so when we go from drilling, we go to hole punching as the next thing, right? Because that's the next thing you have to do. So talk about your favorite tool here.
So this is something that we've had to use a lot lately. We had to use it primarily when we're starting the rigging for our electrical system. And we want to be able to secure wires going through bulkheads, going through different panels. And instead of using a step drill, we have the ability to actually punch a very precise hole. And so this is when we found this tool set, which I'll actually show.
Why don't you pick up the whole thing? This is another one, if you're looking to get it. It's another one ATS has. We bought from a bunch of places. ATS is great. So what these do, while Jake holds this very heavy setup, is they allow you to, you do a starter hole, which holds one of these bolts, depending on the size of one that you're going to do. And then all you have to do is you choose the size that you need, and there's basically two dies. One that grabs it with the cutting edge, and one that's the female, that's the receptacle. And then the bolt goes through these. You only need the hole to be as good as the size of the bit, which again, a unibit, a step bit, those are like a guaranteed go-to. And then you start cranking this thing down, and it will just go and pop a hole right out for you. Pretty much any size that you need.
And the cool thing about this, which some of our other punches don't allow you to do, is you actually don't need wrenches on both sides of the metal. You actually only need everything that is in this kit.
That's true. Because it has those teeth that bite in on one side, so you really only have to be on the other side that doesn't have the teeth, and that matters a lot because a lot of times you don't have the extra hands. Let's say if your extra hand guys are in school or something like that. So yeah, that's when you look at like a bunch of the different things that we've done on the console and other pieces. Actually, here's a good example right here.
Mhm.
You made this.
Yeah, so again, this is something that I recently did in order to bring the main battery cables, which are in the back of the plane where the batteries are.
Yep.
We need to bring the power to the front of the plane where all the accessories that are taking the power are. And in order to do that, I was able to punch all of these holes extremely quickly because of this.
Yeah. Oh, this was a hole that you just cut out the bottom of.
Yeah.
I mean, it just punches straight through. We use it for scat tubing, things like that. It's just great to be able to use punches instead of drills sometimes.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the big guy here. Okay, instrument panels. If you ever have to put in a hole for an instrument panel, this is another ATS guy. This tool has both sizes in one tool. You actually can, if you use it this way, there we go. If you use it this way, there you go. It actually goes in and does the 2 1/4 hole. And in this one, you do need 2 wrenches. You need to go at it from both sides and pull it in. Again, pop it out. You have a perfect hole when you're done. If you use it the other way, then it comes in and you get a 3 1/8. So 3-inch instrument. So it doesn't matter whether you have a 2-inch or 3-inch instrument. And then the other thing that you get with that, or that you can get with that, is this template, which looks like just a piece of steel with some holes, but it's actually made so that after that hole is in place, these ridges line up perfectly, you get it straight, and then it has the holes for the instrument screws. And so again, boom, perfect, done. Oops, don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. I've actually used this a bunch of times where we're starting on the rear panel.
Yep.
And again, you use the punch to punch the hole, stick this in, you have the template right there for you.
Excellent. Okay, so now
It's just a reminder for those of you on, if you're on a computer watching this, you can change the size of the frame by making the window bigger, and if you're on a phone, you can rotate your phone and make the window bigger.
great. So a few people asked about seeing things a little better, a little closer up. You can stretch your viewing window. You can rotate your phone. There's other things you can do. And I'll try to spend a little more time showing these things close up so you can see them a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to drilling the things, a couple other things that are important. When you use a standard drill, if you look closely at the hole, especially in thinner sheet metal, you will find the hole is not really perfectly round. It's kind of a little bit triangular. That's what a normal drill ends up doing. It doesn't make a perfect hole. And so it is helpful to actually purchase a set of reamers. And a reamer is this tool right here. I'll see if you can see that up close. It has a whole bunch of teeth in it, and it is a precision milling tool that you can still use by hand. And what you do is you drill it either slightly undersized, or in some cases you can do the same size drill, but it's usually better to go a little bit undersized, and you can either go forward or you can go backward while turning the reamer very slowly. You wind up with a perfectly round hole that's smooth, no burrs. These are really, really good tool to get, especially if you ever surf around and find a way to get these inexpensively.
But now let's talk about what you do when you mess up.
Okay, so, well, we were going to talk first about pop riveting, but we're going to talk about the end backwards now, because this is Jake's favorite tool. And so what's this, Jake?
So this is how you're able to drill out rivets, and they actually don't spin when you do them. So a lot of the time when you use a drill bit and try to take out a rivet from a hole, and if you messed up or you need to change something, this actually has teeth in the very front where the drill bit comes out.
Right, so let me show you this up close. So this is adjustable tool. Again, this is just another one. I don't know the part number from ATS, but this is just one that we got there. You push this, it's spring loaded, and there is a bit inside. Again, you can see that it comes up as you push like this, and then you adjust the depth of this, but these teeth out here, when you mess up and you need to get a pop rivet out, this is meant for pop rivets, for pulled rivets, you actually go, you nestle this against your head, you push, you drill and you push at the same time, it's amazing. It
Yeah.
just completely, boom, rivet's gone.
Mhm.
You don't miss, you don't have problems with the mandrel spinning,
It
gone.
holds the head
Yeah.
completely still when you do
That's
it.
right.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to first using that since we have never made a mistake with drill bits.
Yep.
Okay, speaking of rivets, let's talk about some of our rivet tools. So actually, let's kind of go through. We have, in addition to using power ones, which are great, we have an air powered one that we use a lot. You always have your go-to standard pop rivet tool. I'm sure most of you have that. Everybody should have something that's like that. The next most versatile one that we have is one that has a rotating head, so that you can use it directly like this. For those cases, you can use it when you're going in almost any angle. This will actually allow you to use, and that's very helpful. And then the next one is this one that looks like someone's grandfather dug it up from their basement. It is, and unfortunately, it is the most expensive by like 10 times any of the others. This is the original pop riveter, POP, the original pop riveter. What's notable about this all metal tool that looks like, again, it was made in a blacksmith shop. Literally, look at that handle. That literally looks like it was made by a blacksmith. But what you'll notice, the head of this is so tiny, and that you can put it right up against the edge of something.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that one also is the one that hurts the most when you use it.
Yeah. Got to wear gloves so you don't.
Exactly. All right, so we leave pop riveting and cool tools having to do with that, and we move to how you hold things together. Clicos.
Yes. So first, let's talk about the Clico pliers, and we're able to find on Aircraft Tool Supply 3 different types. So the first one is the standard,
The metal ones that like everybody's got. They flop around all over the place. They're cheap.
Mhm.
Like that's great. Like for your first 5 Clicos that you ever do, and then you hate it.
Until you find these spring-loaded ones, makes it so much easier.
Yeah, cushion handle, spring loaded. It never leaves your hand. It's so much easier to use.
But then, as we talk about, of course, we need tools to get into every part of the plane. Don't want to make anything harder for ourselves. So we go to get this tool, and it's actually inverted a little bit, so it allows you to get to very,
It's
very
a
tight
straight
spaces.
in one, right? Yeah. So you're going right in against something, straight back and forth.
Mhm.
Kind of cool. A little shinier than our others. Talk about that one.
So a lot of times when we put in Clicos, and especially on painted surfaces, it happens a little bit with just straight metal, but with painted surfaces, the edge of the Clico, because it's metal and just as you're pulling it in and out, will end up putting circular marks around that hole. Can either chip the paint or put basically digging marks in the hole or in the metal. So what you can actually buy is these Clico caps.
Yeah, little cushion caps.
Little cushion caps that you put onto the Clico, and they will stop.
Yeah, so if you ever have to work on a finished surface or anything like that, then the 2 things you're going to need the most, you're going to need drills with drill bit stops. That's what this is. It's a spring-loaded stop that you put around a drill. That also keeps that nasty head from your drill from grinding into the metal. And then when you're done, a cushioned Clico cap like that. And lastly, before you drill anything, I don't want to forget, probably one of the things that get one of the most uses in our entire shop is this automatic center punch. And it's like a pencil. Just this little automatic center punch. God, we use this thing all the time. I love this little thing. They make big ones. This is the key right there. All right, we've been talking about a lot of normal things. One thing I do want to say is you don't have to buy cool tools. Sometimes you make them in the shop. And so one of the things that I find to be really helpful is to get a set of very inexpensive sockets, inexpensive wrenches, especially thin ones that you can get sometimes, and they get to meet your grinder, right?
Yeah.
And if you have trouble getting in to different spots or want specialized tools, your grinder is your best friend, and so is cheap tools. And so take a look at this. Here's an example of getting in to work on things like this was for working on flaps I do the same thing for ignition leads. When you're going in to the underside on Bonanza, you have this little like hole, like gill plate that opens up, and somehow you got to get under there and get to like remove everything for your sockets. That's the key to doing that, is grinding things down. I got this thin one right here. You can see how thin that is. And the same thing, I ground it down so it has enough clearance that I can really easily get in there and do things. And so, you've got like sockets. Here's one that I did recently. I was having trouble getting in to remove an exhaust system. And I took a socket and really ground it down. It looks like a little tulip view, if you can see that. And there isn't a heck of a lot of meat left on this thing, but it got in where I couldn't get in any other way without removing the induction system, everything. And if you can avoid hours and hours of work removing other things just because you can grind something down, that's the right key. Here's another one that's similar to that, and this is having a flex bit. Flex bits, if you want to grab one of those, are really, really important. That's just like a bit with a universal on it. And I like having a good set and a not so good set, so that on the good set, there's things I can do to, I can treat them well as a craftsman set. And what I actually do is sometimes it's hard to get these to stand up straight when you need them to. If you're trying to fish it in somewhere and it's flopping over, I just take electrical tape and wrap it around it. And then this obviously has seen more than enough days, so this electrical tape needs replacement. But wrap it around and that'll keep it stiff, but still let it move as much as it needs to move. And so that's really cool. And then this is the inexpensive set that I really ground down to almost nothing to be able to use it as well. So those are cool. And then the last thing is, if you have Zeus fasteners, those are little quarter turn fasteners around, same deal. Time to get out the grinder. Take a regular fat screwdriver and round off the tip instead of going and buying a specialized one. And it's always there for you. Works great.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So what have we got next? And we're going to get more and more specialized into more and more unique tools. Let's hit that one.
Okay. You can explain this one.
Actually, you can explain this one.
Well, so especially on this plane, which is what we're starting to work on with the heating and cooling system and all the lines that go through there, you need to be able to have these clamps when you're putting them onto the mixing box and other things like that. But
just hose clamps for cooling, air ducts, things like that.
But there's no good way without this tool to use this clamp properly, which is to be able to spin it.
Yeah, and twist it down.
And twist it down without using some sort of plier or other thing.
Yeah, no, I just did this during the annual of Bonanza. There's like reaching into like this one spot, trying to get off, the cover over the spar, and it's like, oh my God, like you keep trying to get in there to tighten or untighten this hose, and it's a tight spot, and you do it as much as you can with your fingers, and then you go get a pair of duck bills, and you're far away, and you're trying a little bit to do that. Oh, this thing solves everything. It's just a special tool. It's not expensive, and it just has a slot. It's made specifically for being able to get in there, and anything that's just it'll work on anything that's just meant to be put your hand on and twist. So that one works really great for that.
So
what's your next favorite tool?
Do you want to talk about some kind of hidden gems that I actually just found out today that we even had?
Okay, go for it.
And you can go and explain these.
Oh, I like these guys. Okay. Let's get into a section that kills everybody, and that is how do you get into tight spaces when you're trying to put a screw, a nut, a washer, something in there, hold it, start a nut, whatever it is you have to do. How do you make this happen? I can't tell you how many times that it just becomes, reaching in, drop it, reaching in, drop it. And there's tricks for like dabbing a little something on it to make it stick to a screwdriver. There's all sorts of things in the game. When I found these screw holders, I found love in them. Do you have actual screw here? So let's start with the one for straight screws, for flathead screws. We've got this little guy here. It's got a spring-loaded head on it that when you go and, actually it's already loaded here. So when you twist it, you put it on something, and then you turn this little spring-loaded contraption. There you go. And now it will hold the screw in whatever position you want, and it'll hold it upside down, sideways, in whatever position. And it's just the right size with its little like pencil shape that you can actually get in there and just keep twisting your fingertips in order to make that work. Let's actually show you this against the sun. Take a piece of white here. This might even have helped all along. So take a look at this. Nope, that doesn't work. All right, how about that? Ben's giving me instructions behind so that you can see this. So that again is showing you here how this works. It's a little spring-loaded tip, and then what it's made to do is as soon as you're done, you just twist it, and then boom, it'll release the screw. And they make one for flathead screws, and they make a totally different one for Phillips. And the Phillips one's kind of cool because show that. What that does is it just has this collar that as you pull the collar down, it spreads out, has little teeth on it. You put it on there, you let it go, and then that's it. So another like really cool little tool that will hold a screw in place, pull the collar, boom, you're done. You know, whatever you need. It's very, very, very easy to use. These things are not expensive, and they can save hours and hours of time and a whole lot of screws from going places that you then have to fish them out with a magnet.
Okay, which will go next?
You know what I mean? Let's talk about reaching and holding different things.
Okay.
All right, so I'll tell you, oh my God, I missed so much not having Oshkosh at AirVenture this year, or AirVenture at Oshkosh this year. And one of the reasons I missed it is I love going to all those areas where they have like little tools out, right? Like it's always in the
tents,
backside of all that stuff. And it's because you can get so many things that are either dental tools or medical tools, and we love them as mechanics, right? Mm-hmm. And so here's an example of something. This pair of like forceps that are really, really long. You get this. They make tons of different kinds of forceps, and those are great, especially if you drop something or if you have to hold something in place and fish it right in, because they lock. That's one of the best parts. Is as you're cinching it down, it actually locks into place.
Yep.
That's cool. Love that one. And then another one that we also got there are these pliers that have multiple articulating points. So if you open this up, there we go. This must be kind of stiff. You can actually see that this has two joints, one down here and one up here, and moving it opens this way. Well, what's nice about that is this entire region is narrow and remains narrow while the point opens, because there's a lot of times you have to go in through a really small hole and then open and close to do something. Those are your key for that. Absolutely. And it goes along with that, of course, you want to have a good set of normal needle nose pliers that do that. We use things like that. But if you get some really long ones, those are also really helpful. And then you can never have enough dental tools. These things may scare you when you sit in the chair when they come out, but using them to actually go in, you'd be surprised the different things they're for. They're not just for kind of like maybe scratching something, but they're for finding a hole. I use it for actually starting a nut as well sometimes. And let's talk about that, because we're gonna, I'll show you some really special things that I made myself. If you want to grab the ones from the back, let's look at the angle one here. Here's something you can make yourself very, very easily that has saved me many, many times. Just take a little piece of metal like this. I bent it up. You can bend it at whatever angle that you need. And then you put a screw in it with a nut so that the screw is sticking out. You can do this from either direction. So again, all this is piece of metal, hole in it, screw, bent at the end, move it however you want, and the screw's held in with that nut on it. Now, what's this for? Well, if you've ever had a really tight spot that you need to get a nut started, a good way of doing that is to actually take the nut you need to start, put it on this tool. So it is actually already started like that. It's loose, it's sitting right on it, as you can see here. Mate this up against the screw as you fish it in somewhere, mate it up against the open end of what you're trying to, take your little dental tool and start spinning it. And you will be transferring it from one screw onto the other screw as you hold it perfectly in place, and it'll just spin right on. I came up with this a bunch of years ago, and I have used it so many times. It's just been great. It especially works with castle nuts when you have any type of nut where you're going to be putting a cotter pin in. And speaking of that, and this again, some of our experience is going to be our own plane. On the Bonanza, on the tail, you actually, let's see where the this guy. Speaking of that, in those you have a clevis pin, which is a screw that actually we got one of them right here. This is a clevis pin. It is basically a bolt with a straight flathead on one end, and then threads and a hole for a cotter pin on the other. This is meant not to be in tension, but to be in shear. And so they're used on a lot of hinges and things like that. Well, when something like this is in place, you need to hold it with the screwdriver, and then you need to get the nut on. So here is just a cheap screwdriver that was bent over and shaved down on our friendly grinder. And what that does is it allows you to go in, hold it from one angle like this, and then bring this guy in and whatever angle you want and spin that nut on. Favorite tool, love that. Cost is like, I don't know, $2, maybe not even, a few cents. Oh, and speaking of dealing with cotter pins, talk about it.
So we actually had a couple circumstances in our latest annual that we were doing, trying to take cotter pins off. And you're always trying to figure out the best way to pull the cotter pin off without slipping and maybe
Hanging in everything.
else. So this is a cool tool, and it doesn't always work in every circumstance, depending if you have the space or not. But you actually are able to stick this top end into the loop of the cotter pin, slip this under where the loop is, and this should give you that initial pull to get that bottom end out.
Pulls it right out.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can fit in, and if you can't fit it in, go to Mr. Grinder.
Yeah.
He'll help you fit it in.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, grab that guy right next to you. One of the other things that's really hard to do, and until I found this tool, man, is removing hoses from things. Hoses that get set in place for a while, you get in and the idea, right? You're always like, can I fit a flathead screwdriver underneath it, twist, which can damage the hose, can introduce foreign material into things, especially with vacuum systems. You're always, when you're trying to get something off, you want to very carefully pry it off, and you don't want to be putting pressure on the instrument. You want to just be working between the fitting and the hose. Enter the pair of hose pliers. All these do is separate. It's got a separation there. They make these in different sizes. Slip it over, squeeze it together, and it'll just pull the hose right off. It's like magic, and you can just go about the rest of your day without being frustrated. Couple more things. Now, other companies make things that also hold bolts. There's like a million different things out there if you want specialized tools to hold bolts. And this is one of them. This is actually a bolt holder. It's spring-loaded like this. You just pull it and a little arm comes out. And this actually lets you go and put a screw or a bolt into something. Spring-loaded, push it, slides right back off. That's another one right there. And last on here is this little guy, which is this long arm that you can slide nuts. And this one's mainly for nuts. I don't think it would work well for washers unless you really cranked it down in a vise. But it's another way to kind of slide something into place, hold it there, like that guy as well. Okay, what do you got next?
Okay.
Oh, this is your favorite thing.
This is my favorite thing. I've had this problem on the Mustang a lot of times where I've realized that one of my least favorite components to ever work on ever was angle clamps. Because
anytime I have to do an angle clamp, I'm like, Jake, I got a job for you.
And there's something about them that you have to balance getting this clamped over what you're trying to clamp, get the bolt in while also being on the other side, and you're trying to balance this whole thing. I could never, ever get it right. So what you actually introduced me with was this tool,
Handy clamp.
which is a very, very thin clamp that you can put on the side of the idle clamp.
Is that for the side or the front, or?
Really wherever you need. I found it on the side is the best, because then you can actually hold the clamp with that tool while you try to put it in.
Right, and so you crank it down here. Now, I have to say, we're not all about rah-rah on tools, because this particular tool has a great job of doing this. Like, it's always falling off. And so that caused us some trouble until we found this next one.
And this one we actually found recently after having trouble with that tool again. More stuff on why I hate this job. But now with this tool, which is the last thing that we're going to talk about before we get into questions, is to permanently clamp or temporarily clamp the idle clamp in order to basically mount it in any place that you need to. And this is what this tool does. It goes around the hole so you can stick the bolt through while also clamping what you need to in place. And this is really, like, when I start using this, this might not be my worst job.
All of a sudden you're going to be okay with it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, all right, now we have probably a long list of things we didn't even get to show you, and so we may even have to have another show depending on you. Like, you guys let us know whether this is something you want to see again. But while we're here, let's move from here into some questions that people have said as soon as Ben gets back. We'll figure out. So Ben, what questions do we have here from the audience? Okay, so while Ben's figuring that side of things out, let's go with a couple other things. Oil filters. You have an oil filter. One of the nicest tools that you can have is this guy right here. And this is an automatic, it's an all-in-one tool that has the torque built in, a ratchet built into it, and it is just sized directly for the nut that's on top of oil filters. Boom, put it on, go until it clicks, you're done. And, so it's just a great tool. You can use it for getting oil filters on or off. Another one that I really like right here. Let's see. Okay, well, we're running out of time. We only have a few minutes left, but in the time that we have, let's give you a few other things that we do. Ben's our timekeeper here. And so send in any questions if you have them. We'll try to get to them. Air tools. One of the things that we love in our air tools are things like mini belt sanders. This is a 3/8" belt sander. I'll tell you, you use this on larger things. This is a great tool that you can grab, start, just go along an edge, something like that. Really great way to handle things there. Another thing is when we talk about cutting tools, there's a variety of different tools that we use to cut sheet metal, especially larger pieces of sheet metal that we can't just put on a shear or something. Starts here with this, our Dremel Sawmax. This is available just in your local Home Depot. Comes with a metal blade, a abrasive blade that's made for metal. Works wonders on aluminum. Really quick, cuts straight, doesn't make a lot of trouble for you. We also have an electric shear. This guy. This is what's called a throatless shear. This is an electrical one. Very heavy is the only problem. It really will like melt your arms down. But this is a great tool to just buzz through sheet metal and make cuts. There's an air version of that as well that's available. This is one you can get that does shearing that way. And then you can also do it with a pneumatic nibbler, which this is, which will actually just let you go along, do some nibbling. So those are the biggest things that we use as well in order to do stuff.
A question we have coming in is how to remove rusted screws and other things of deteriorated.
Good question. Great question. How do you remove rusted and other deteriorated screws? And certainly, of course, your first thing is to put penetrating oil. We like mouse milk. put that on, leave it overnight. You can use PB Blaster, let something soak into at least give yourself a chance of doing it. The next thing you can do is try, you have to be very, very careful with this, to do, if there's any way that you can apply a little bit of heat to what you're trying to enlarge the area now, you would do that only with a gentle heat gun or something like that, no open flame, nothing that's going to be so hot it's going to change the temper of the metal, cause you any trouble. But that's one thing you could do. And then at the end of the day, you're stuck with other options, which sometimes are taking a Dremel with like a very thin cutting blade, cutting a new edge, a new slot in it, and turning it into a flathead, and then trying to take it off that way. If the head snaps off at that point, well, that's when you go to the first thing you do is use your center punch and try to get a hole, that little tiny mark actually, that is the start of your drilling, and go and do some drilling into it until you can actually use an easy out. You can find those also, ATS has those, there are a bunch of places. Get a high quality one. You do not want to be using easy out tools from like Harbor Freight or something like that. You need really high quality ones because you only have one shot, and you want it to be something that's very sharp and is very strong, and then that should help you with that situation. Anything else? Nope, we're good on that end. I'll show you one other cool tool that's kind of fun in this before we wrap up, or actually maybe a couple because we still have a few here. Here's one that you may or may not have ever seen before. This is a metal punch, a metal hand punch. You actually put different sized dies in it, and you can actually go into sheet metal, get it started, and clamp it down, and it will punch a hole right through. That is cool if it's not something that's easy to drill or it doesn't make sense for a drilling kind of situation to put in there. Another thing that's also fun in there, oh, here's one. If you ever work on cables, control cables, where you've got a turnbuckle and you've got to move the ferrule, one of the challenges that you have in those situations is, you know, you turn the center and it pulls the cable together or lets it go. Problem is, as you turn the center, the cable can start to twist, and you don't want twist in a cable. As you start twisting the cable, it'll start to possibly unfurl or get over twisted on one side. You really need these to be relaxed on both ends and only turn the ferrule. And in that case, you have this one. This is one that's still in the wrapping from when I got it, and wish I'd actually remembered I had it and used it. And that is this tool right here, which is an aircraft cable rigging tool. What this is, it uses a chain in between two of these little C-clamps. And these clamps go in and they hold either side. And because it's a chain, it won't twist. And so you hold either side with this, very simple to use, spin the ferrule, pulls it in, lets it go. Love this thing, great tool. And I'm gonna start remembering. I have it next time instead of like poking my head in. Next, tires, bead blaster. If you're not a shop and you don't have a big tool that you can press down to break a bead, if you, you know, this is an owner allowed task. It's a preventive maintenance task cited in the FARs, Part 91. And so you have the ability, Part 43, excuse me, you have the ability to go in and do certain maintenance tasks on your aircraft, changing the tires one of them. But if you don't have the right tools, it's going to be a problem. And this little guy, this little bead blaster, actually locks into place on the rim and of the wheel itself, and allows you to crank it down, and then it'll pull off the adhered tire from the rim safely. It's cushioned. It's a great way to do things, and that has certainly been a good one for us. And a couple last tools that we've got. Yeah, if you haven't seen them before, here's one: plastic razor blades. These are great because they're non-marring. They won't hurt aluminum if you need to scrape off gaskets and things like that. Definitely recommend getting a set of these. And I think we are nearing the end. This is your favorite. Why don't you talk about that guy? One of your favorites. I keep saying everything's your favorite.
Everything is my favorite.
I'm trying to like say like it's your favorite tool. It's your favorite tool.
This is something that we use primarily on the Mustang, and especially with the skins when we're using a lot of clecos at a time. And a air-powered cleco remover is something that has really changed the game when it comes to removing and putting on our skins when we're trying to fit things like access panels and other things like that. And being able to just press this button, and this cylinder, let me just hold this. This cylinder will punch in and out when you're holding this lever, and will allow you to just click the button, pull the cleco out, put it somewhere else. It really, really does change the game when you're trying to deal with large amounts of clecos on large pieces of metal.
Yep. All right, so we are at the end of our time. I'm sure we've got a lot more stuff to show you. We'll find another time, and we'll also do some things. I want to show you some of our bench tools that we have also that were used to form sheet metal and cut it and do all sorts of other things. But these are hopefully some things that just, get your mind going about cool tools that might make a difference in your world, whether you're an aircraft mechanic, whether you just do your own stuff in your own shop, whether you're working on your car, whatever it is. I think it's cool to know what some of the things are out there, because I'll tell you, it can make all the difference in the world to your day.
Mm-hmm.
So for SocialFlight, thank you so much. I'm Jeff Simon. This is Jake Simon. Be sure to stay with our series. We're coming back next Tuesday with Dale Klattmeyer, CEO and co-founder of Cirrus Aircraft. Going to have him as a guest on SocialFlight Live, find out everything that went into the making of Cirrus and where things are going from this point forward. Until next time, thank you so much for taking your time and joining us here at SocialFlight. Blue skies.